49ers sixth round cornerback Tariq Castro-Fields, the scouting report on the 49ers sixth rounder, how he fits into the 49ers quarterback room, and the cornerback room has grown yet again post-draft. Jason Verrett coming back to the 49ers for one more run. We'll get into all of those specifics as well coming up right now.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker. Thanks for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're talking Tariq Castro-Fields. The 49ers drafted a long and fast cornerback in round 6. We'll get into the scouting report, his strengths, weaknesses, how he projects into the 49ers depth chart. But first, let's talk about Jason Verrett, Croc. And we do have some specifics now on the Verrett signing. It's another one-year deal. We'll see if Verrett can come back yet again from injury. And according to Field Yates, since Jason Verrett counts for, he qualifies for the veteran salary benefit, which means the 49ers are only going to carry a cap charge of $895,000 for Jason Verrett being on the roster. So that's free, man. That's like a free player. If Jason Verrett can come back anything near what he had been in the past, and it'd be really cool if he did. And I think John Lynch spoke yesterday about Verrett and was like, Verrett's healthy. He's a number one corner. He's a starting corner. So do the 49ers have too many starting corners all of a sudden, Croc?
First of all, is this vet thing, is that a new thing?
I think it's a new thing to help veterans out so they don't just get pushed out of the league because younger players are cheaper. So if you prefer to have that veteran, then I think it helps someone like that to stay on a roster if they want to try it again. And I'm kind of surprised Verrett wants to go again, man, but this dude loves the game. He loves football. So I'm not going to put it past him. That'd be really cool if he's able to come back again. But to be honest with you, he probably shouldn't be trying to play. Like the 49ers need to protect him. If he does come back and looks like the same guy, they probably shouldn't even start him, which is kind of messed up. But you don't want to throw a full load of snaps on him with all his injuries, right?
I think he wants to leave the game on his own terms, right? And there are some people who's just like, can I just have that season? He had it in 2020 where it was like, man, he was really good. And I think he just kind of wanted, can I double up on that? That boom, he had the injury. But me kind of just watching him, how he moves, knowing some people around him, I think he just wants to leave the game on his own terms.
Would a slot role make sense for Jason Verrett?
He's not a slot corner, in my opinion. Now, I know a lot of people would think because he is smaller, like, oh, that's a slot. No, to me, he's an outside guy who can play inside if need be. Now, again, if you wanted him to play inside full-time, he can. The issue you'd kind of run into is it's just more physical there. And do you want him facing more physicality? And what I mean by that, not physicality from a receiver, it's just more involvement in the run game, block shedding, bodies falling around you. You kind of want to put him out a little bit more in space where he's not vulnerable to those things happening.
Yeah, you are definitely going to take on the run a little bit more if you're playing inside. So that makes sense. If he was, say, a third corner, it makes sense to bring him in on the outside, have someone else jump in to the slot there. 49ers wanted to rotate that way. Man, but if you're healthy and you win the starting job, like you're out there, right?
And that's a possibility with him.
And you don't really rotate corners like you do pass rushers or something. You know, it'd be weird if all of a sudden Verrett's in the game this series, and then it's Emmanuel Mosley this series, and then it's Thomas on another series. That'd be kind of odd.
You don't typically see that in the NFL. You did see it with the Nittany Lions film, which we'll get into Tariq Castro-Fields. But NFL, so if you start, you are playing. And even in blowouts, and we saw him get hurt in the blowout last year, talking about Jason Verrett. Got hurt against the Detroit Lions. 49ers were up big, and Verrett did not finish the game. Matter of fact, he did not finish the rest of the season after that week 1 injury and the torn ACL. So, yeah, NFL not really rotating cornerbacks in that way.
So a lot of bodies now suddenly at cornerback, a pretty deep position group after spending money on Charvarius Ward, the free agent from Kansas City as well. We'll get into the depth chart a little bit more later, but yeah.
Well, I just wanted to touch on, because you asked, like, do they have too many starting caliber cornerbacks now, right? And I think you can never have too many good corners, but he is someone that can 100% push for a starting job. Like, heading into last season, it was a no-brainer that he was the 49ers' best cornerback on their roster. Like, nobody even had to think about it. And the year before, he played at a top 10 cornerback level. Now, he's had injuries. I'm pretty sure the perception of him isn't quite as high as it was heading into last season. But if he is healthy, which, over the last 5 years or so, he's been more not healthy than actually healthy. So, that's a big question right there, and not sure it's something that you can count on. But if he is a legitimate starter, even at this stage in his career. It's just, is he going to play? I think that's the bigger question.
You mentioned that Nittany Lions defense. There's a lot of dudes on that defense, and the 49ers went there in the 6th round and drafted Tariq Castro-Fields, 6 feet and 5/8 at the combine. Showed up a little taller and longer at his pro day. He was 6 feet and 7/8. So somewhere just south of 6'1" is Tariq
6'1" corner. 6'1".
Yeah.
You gotta round it up. Since there's some discrepancy there, I just say he's probably like me, where you just look at him and it's like, hey, that's a 6'1" guy.
6'1". He's a 6'1" corner. That'll say 6'1" on the depth chart for sure in the program. And 30 3/4 inch arm length at the combine. And again, discrepancy, almost 32-inch arm length at his pro day. So yeah, they're just testing differently. They're starting it in a different place on the shoulder. I don't know what's going on. We've seen that now with most of the players we've talked about here, about how the discrepancy in arm length is there for these prospects at their pro days. But size is not the problem for Tariq Castro-Fields. He's big and he's fast. He ran 4.38 in the 40-yard dash at the combine. He had a 37-inch vertical at his pro day, a 10-foot 11-inch broad jump at his pro day, 4.06 short shuttle, which is really nice, 7.05 3-cone, which is pretty nice for a bigger corner, and threw up 14 reps on the bench press as well at the Penn State pro day. So those are the testing numbers for Tariq Castro-Fields. And I start to ask questions, because if you're 6'1", 195, you run a 4.38, and your agilities are pretty solid, and you played at a high level on a big-time defense in college football, how are you a late 6th-round pick 221 overall, Croc?
That is a great question, and that's a question that I asked to Twitter, and I kind of put out there saying, and I could be wrong, right? I'm not 100% on all my evaluations of guys, but I like to think that I'm fairly close in the sense of kind of knowing what a corner is and strengths and weaknesses, being able to identify those things, what's easier or harder to improve on, whether it hurts the guy at the next level or not, and he's able to work through it. That's something I can't really anticipate as much. But as far as what I've seen on film so far, I actually put out the question, like, how did this guy last to the 6th round? And I'm not saying that because he's now a 49er. To me, he just looks like a guy that I think is, I'll say this. I watched Ambry Thomas and I watched Tariq Castro-Fields, and I personally would have Tariq Castro-Fields over Ambry Thomas if they were in the same draft class.
Ooh, okay. Now we're talking there. And some injury problems, some nagging injuries. I don't think it caused him to miss too much time throughout his career, but that might be a reason why he fell a little bit in the draft. A little bit of an older prospect. He turned 23 in January. So if the 49ers make the playoffs next year, Tariq Castro-Fields will turn 24 at the end of his rookie year if the Niners are still playing in January, which is the plan. So a little bit older prospect, 5th-year senior, started for 4 years at Penn State. He was a freshman in 2017 and then began starting games his redshirt freshman year in 2018, started 12 games in 2019, which was like his big breakout year, honorable mention All Big Ten. Led the team in passes defensed that year with 10. And then his junior and senior years, again, honorable mention, Big Ten, both years. Didn't get that first team All Big Ten, though.
I don't think he played enough. We talked about the rotation that they had, and that was something that was interesting to see. Just a guy kind of, you watch him for, a few series, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, where's Castro-Fields? And it's like just a different number out there, number 23. Yeah, there were about 4 different cornerbacks that they played, and So two of them would be out there. Then they kind of rotate one to the other side, and you see somebody else in there. Then they rotate another guy in. Like there was a 4-man rotation at the cornerback position.
Yeah, and good and bad. And we'll talk a little bit about that next, and some of the dudes that are on that defense and where he was lined up for Penn State on defense and his strengths and weaknesses and how he fits into the 49ers defense next. But we got to tell the folks about Blue Nile. Whether she prefers a statement piece or everyday subtle elegance, BlueNile.com has fine jewelry options for every mom. Shop high-quality classic diamond earrings, elegant tennis bracelets, or gemstone pendant necklaces at BlueNile.com. Celebrate all of life's special moments, whether it's for mom, whether you're trying to find an engagement ring of her dreams, to gifting a classic or timeless jewelry piece, all at prices you won't find at a traditional jeweler. My favorite part about BlueNile.com is the help they can give you. If you're a guy like me that maybe isn't the greatest at buying these types of gifts, Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. So mark Mother's Day with something enduring. This Mother's Day, give mom something she'll treasure forever with fine jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On 49ers listeners get $50 off a $500 purchase. This podcast exclusive is only good through Mother's Day, so use promo code Locked On. That's code Locked On to get that exclusive deal. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. Thanks again, everybody, for making Locked On 49ers your first listen every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure you're checking out all the shows we have to offer. The Peacock and Williamson Show now on YouTube. Check that out. We're on the Locked On NFL channel. Croc doing the Locked On NFL draft thing every day as well. And your team is covered in other sports as well. I know a lot of you like the San Francisco Giants. Got them covered. Maybe a new coach coming for the Lakers. Disaster season. Right, Croc?
It sounds like it. You know, shout out to the Lakers. We're going through a little rough stretch right now. Got the Mickey Mouse ring, but aside from that, it hasn't been very good lately.
All right, let's talk Tariq Castro-Fields. I got duped by their rotation when I very first started watching Penn State's defense. I started watching number 9, and I thought it was Tariq Castro-Fields. Tariq Castro-Fields number 5. I started watching number 9. I was like, God, this guy's good. He's long, man. And then after the first game, I went back to double check. I was like, oh, I was watching the wrong guy. So I had to go back and watch the game again. And it was number 5 I was looking for. But number 9 is a dude. I think he's better than Castro-Fields. I think he might go higher than the 6th round next year. And you know who number 9 is on Penn State's defense, Croc?
I watched him.
Yeah, so he's 6'2", really long. He is Joey Porter Jr. Joey Porter's kid.
Oh.
Yeah. So I
remember watching him during the season, and not like I was just specifically watching him, but just watching the game and seeing number 9 out there.
Jaquan Brisker, who was a player I'd already watched a lot of the defense, and so I'd seen all these guys, a couple times through already because I was watching Jaquan Brisker, was watching Arnold Ebiketie. They got some serious dudes on that defense. But let's talk about number 5, Tariq Castro-Fields, 6'1", 195, ran a 4.38 at the combine. Does that 4.38 speed show on the field to you, Croc?
I felt like he didn't. I felt like he could trust it a little bit more with some of his technique at the line of scrimmage. He's another one of those guys. I think I compared this to McCollum, the cornerback out of Sam Houston, where it's like, hey man, you possess a lot of speed. Trust that. You don't have to bail on your technique at the line of scrimmage. Make guys work laterally, make them work a little bit harder instead of kind of opening the gate, kind of giving them a free release. So to me, that just kind of shows like, no, you got to utilize that speed a little bit more, and it'll help yourself in the long run, throughout a rep at the line of scrimmage and whatnot.
He lined up everywhere, which I like. He lined up in press. He lined up in off coverage. They ran zone. He lined up on the left side, on the right side. We talked about him rotating as well at cornerback because they've got a lot of dudes there. But I think that's a bonus, right? You got to see him do a little bit of everything. Is there one particular alignment, Croc, that you liked him in better? Because I've heard some people say maybe he could even move inside to safety. I definitely say he's not a slot. I saw him line up in the slot, and I did see him get put in the spin cycle on a whip route against Ohio State, trying to work out of the slot. I don't think lateral agility, even though his agility numbers were fine in his testing, is his strength. I think he's more of an outside corner, pretty strictly.
Yeah, he's more of an outside guy. I think he does a really good job of playing with his feet. You talked about like being able to play press, play off. And I like guys that show the ability to play off because I can teach you how to play press. And I think that, again, with the patience and things like that, with some technical things, like he can improve pretty seamlessly to being more of a press guy, especially when you possess that type of speed. But from off cover, some of the things he did, I thought it was terrific. A guy that had really good feet. I liked how he was able to play with his feet. It didn't take too much effort to get in and out of his breaks. The click and close, I thought that was terrific, and he closed with some aggressiveness. Sometimes a little bit too much aggressive. So someone in my mentions, because I had put out there like, why is this guy a 6th-round pick? I thought it was a little bit better than that. And I saw someone say horrible tackling, up in age, gets burnt on double moves. All right, and I'll address that a little bit because I saw someone else talk about tackling and things like that. I don't give a damn about a cornerback's tackling unless I'm a cover 2 team. Like if I'm going to run cover 2 where you got to squeeze this guy, then you got to, oh man, there's a back flaring out the backfield. You got to close on that and make a tackle. If I'm going to rely on a cornerback to be a force player a lot, then yeah, you want him to be tackling better. But if he's not that, then I'm not going to ding a guy as much to where I drop him to the 6th round because he's not great at tackling, or he had too many missed tackles.
And he gives fine effort. He's not afraid of contact or anything like that. So
right.
To me, that's the box you need to check. Not so much tackling technique is just like, is he afraid to hit people? And he's absolutely not.
Yeah, like you want to know more about the mindset of him. So I bet he's someone that you could look at last season. Oh man, he had way too many missed tackles. How was it before? Was he missing 16 tackles the previous season and the year before that? Because he is someone that has played a lot. That's something I would check into. But in the sense of the double moves, now that is a real thing. I've seen a couple games now where he was beat on a double move, and it's tough. And I remember I kind of noted this in a short thread I put out of him, just some clips. There's about 5 or 6 clips or whatever, where I was just like, okay, things I like. Oh man, this double move. And I want my guys to be aggressive. I think the same reason why, you see somebody click and close right now on passes, say if it's a 6-yard out route and he clicks and close and he breaks it up, you'll be really excited about that. But if a guy, runs a double move on him, it's like, oh no, like, oh, well, now, nope, he gets beat on double moves too much. And it's like, well, you can't have it both ways. Do you want someone that is aggressive, closing on underneath passes, which you're going to be a little bit vulnerable to double moves? And that happened to him. If I saw more of it, where it's just like, okay, this is happening too much, right? And I did see it happen twice. One time they actually caught it. The other time it was incomplete. That's borderline happening too much. But I don't want to say, all right, dude, don't close as fast. You know what I'm saying? Like there's that fine line you have to play with that. But just in the sense of how it looked when he closed, man, good feet from off coverage. And, that's kind of opposite of what I thought from Ambry Thomas, who I was like, hey, this is a press man cornerback. But I don't like him off a ton. And then he gets to the 49ers and they're asking him to play off a ton, or at least that's what, and I'm like, well, that wasn't really a strength of his. So yeah, you guys are saying it's taking him a long time to kind of come around, and he needs to improve it, or he's not getting on the field, and all of a sudden he plays and you see him kind of working through some ups and downs or whatever. And I think he finished the season pretty fine, but it's like, he is a press man guy. Whereas Castro-Fields, if you want him to be more of a quarters type cornerback, he can step in day one and do those things at a high level. And then, oh, by the way, let's continue to work on his technique as a press man guy. And I think he can improve there.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And that's what I was going to say about Tariq Castro-Fields. Older prospect. He's played in a bunch of different coverages. He's played on both sides of the field. You would think that the development curve would be pretty quick for him to be able to jump in, and whatever they need him to do, he's had some experience, and he's played against some high level players, talking about that Ohio State game. Because remember, we talked in the past about Brisker when we were talking about him pre-draft, and I mentioned the Ohio State game and how he got beat over the top. So that play, I watched it again because I was watching Castro-Fields, and I watched that game twice because I was watching the wrong corner the first time. I was watching number 9, and I was supposed to be watching number 5. And it was actually they had a conversation about it. So I think what happened was they were rotating to cover 3. And so Brisker was actually the middle of the field safety. And I think it was supposed to be Castro-Fields that was deep third on the side where the touchdown, because it was a deep over coming from the opposite side. And I think they both kind of screwed it up because Brisker should have seen that there was nobody else to cover and covered it himself, even if Castro-Fields screwed it up. But they talked about it and had a conversation afterwards. So I think it might have been Castro-Fields that was supposed to be deep thirds over there where the ball kind of ended up getting caught. So maybe half both of their faults.
I gotta watch that play. Yeah. I started watching that game. That's Ohio State wearing all red uniforms, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I started watching it. I just haven't finished it yet. But I was watching him early in that game. Again, didn't see anything alarming yet, but I was only about a third of the way through.
And it's hard with corners because, and especially this day and age in college football, it's one of the reasons I don't enjoy watching college football that much unless I'm looking for prospects for the NFL, is because there's so many RPOs and they don't really get tested on the outside that much. And that might make it a little bit more difficult for outside corners to transition in the NFL too, because some offenses just don't really target them. And I think both outside corners, both number 9 and number 5, Castro-Fields and Joey Porter Jr., I think in the 3 games I watched, I think they were targeted on the outside maybe 5 total times. Is like they hardly ever get targeted. And so Tariq
Castro-Fields, I watched Castro-Fields get targeted a few times. There was one game where he broke on the out route, boom, broke that pass up. Then they ran a slant on him, boom, he broke that pass up. I was like, man, these are back-to-back plays. I was like, man, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that is nice. In the Ohio State game, that was all RPOs. CJ Stroud's supposed to be like number 1 overall pick type of guy. It's just so hard with those offenses. I was watching that game thinking like, I don't know about that, man. And
you got to watch. It was his the Rose Bowl game where really, I mean, he throughout the year he threw for a ton of yards. He was throwing a lot of touchdowns, and I think that game it was in the Rose Bowl. I can't remember who Ohio State was playing against. Utah, maybe. He made a lot of big time throws in that game, where like big, like NFL caliber throws, corner routes, dropping passes in the bucket. But to me, that was like by far his best outing. So there are some questions in the sense of, what is he going to be? Most people aren't questioning it. It's just, a lot of yards, a lot of touchdowns, some big time throws, especially in the Rose Bowl, but on a consistent basis. And that's why I was like, man, they're waiting for this next group of guys. And it's like, will you get a repeat of what we saw last year? And I think Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, I think they showed a little bit more than like Spencer Rattler, who is kind of getting projected as a number 1 quarterback to come out. Like, I mean, first overall pick. And I'm like, oh man, like these guys have shown more than that.
Yeah.
But there are going to be those questions because like you said, you watch that game and it's not like, oh man, this guy's just like amazing. He's this big physically opposing quarterback who's making all these different throws and he's running and, it wasn't quite that.
Oh, right. And then we're going to start seeing like sort of just the offense, first of all, just Ohio State's offense, and you see quarterbacks going into the league and not translating, and it's so quarterback friendly in college, you're going to start to work. That's going to start to work against these prospects too. As if like Justin Fields has another bad year, and they're not helping him out a lot in Chicago this offseason. Like that team looks really bad with the Bears. And if Fields has another bad year, people are going to say, oh, this, they're going to scout the uniform too and the helmet and be like, oh man, you can't, this offense doesn't translate to the NFL.
They already started to. Well, they already started with Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Right?
That was another knock on him already. Yeah. And it's going to be even worse for Stroud.
Yeah.
Unless Fields shows up. Anyway, okay. So next, a few more notes on Tariq Castro-Fields, the prospect, and then how he fits into the depth chart. The 49ers cornerbacks coming up. How about BetOnline? You know what you can bet on with BetOnline? I know the draft is over. Those draft props were super fun, but now you can bet on the rookies and how they will perform. We talked about the offensive rookie of the year odds in 2022, I think yesterday. What about the defensive rookie of the year odds? Aiden Hutchinson, 5-1, is the favorite to win defensive rookie of the year in 2022. Next is Kayvon Thibodeau, 6-1. Kyle Hamilton, 7-1. Trayvon Walker and Quay Walker, 9-1. Are they related on the Georgia defense? I don't know why I never thought about that before.
I don't know. Maybe a whole bunch of what was it? Herschel Walker. Did he go to Georgia?
Yeah, he did. He's in politics in Georgia now too. Yeah, might be Georgia. Yeah, Herschel Walker's children spread across the state. I don't see the odds for Drake Jackson on this list, but if you can find those odds, it might be worth putting a little something on it because it'll be better than 25-1 odds for Drake Jackson, and he could have a big impact singled up all day across from Nick Bosa. But NBA playoffs, Major League Baseball, you name it, you can bet on it at BetOnline. The Kentucky Derby is coming back as well. So head over to the website or use your mobile device to learn more about all of the trends and all of the action at BetOnline, where the game starts. So Tariq Castro-Fields. I want to talk about a few more plays specifically that I liked and didn't like from him. I told about the spin cycle. So yeah,
real quick, I did want to touch on one more thing with the double moves.
Yeah,
and I talked about the aggressiveness there. The way that I probably would say you can kind of maybe slow that thing down is if you attack more of the upfield shoulder, and then the receiver would kind of have to like run into you. But again, it's an aggressiveness thing. Do you tell him, no, don't undercut it? Because if you undercut it, it's like, hey, I'm thinking pick six here, right? Like when you just get that clean break, and he does. I think when he breaks from off coverage, it is clean, it is pretty, no wasted steps. He's getting out of it, and you take the angle to potentially either break the pass up or pick it off. And do you tell him, don't be that aggressive, just attack that upfield shoulder and then come through and play more of, just to break the pass up so you don't give up the double move? Again, those are things that are coachable. So I do see a lot of people in my mentions, double move. Like I can correct that. Like it's not an issue of he can't cover it. It's just you just tweak something just a little bit. But as far as the ability and everything, it's there.
And you said you didn't really like him in press that much. Was it a technique thing? I saw a couple times where he tried to jam guys and he's kind of throwing both hands at the same time.
Yeah.
Locking himself up a little bit.
Yeah. So when you shoot two hands in the press, you lock your hips, and you probably see his feet stop when you do that. And you don't want that, right? Like you want to, what I always say, feet before hands. So use your feet just to get in position to be able to press and get your hands on and then go. And sometimes you might not be able to get hands on, but as long as you activate those feet, you'll be in better position to be able to turn around with the guy. And yeah, there were a couple times where he did do too much of, I'm going to get hands on him. Boom. I bet you'll see, if you look, you'll see those feet stop. You don't want that. And then there were a couple times where he just opened the gate a little bit too much. So I think this is someone who is trying to find his way as a press guy. Instead of just, hey, I got all these tools in my bag and I'm using these different tools and I'm being successful at all of them. I think that's an area where he can improve. But I didn't think it was anything terrible in the sense of like, oh, you know what? Now you're a 6th round pick. So I'm still trying to figure out why he was that low. And again, I got a lot of comments about the shoulder injury, but we touched on that. He's a guy who played a lot of football. He had an injury, I believe, in 2020 on his shoulder, but in 3 out of 4 years, he didn't miss a game. So I don't know. This isn't like unless they checked his shoulder out and they're like, oh, one more hit, his shoulder's going to fall off. So now you're going to be a 6th round pick. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know.
Really bad. Like does he need more surgery or something like that? We saw Nico Bean fall. And that's one of the big reasons players fall in the NFL draft is the medical. And he only played 3 games in 2020, but I'm not sure if it was like a regular 12-game schedule though, right? Because that was the COVID year. So I don't even know how many games.
Big Ten played a good amount.
Okay.
But he probably he had that injury too. They played more than 3 games. They played like 7 games.
Oh yeah. No, they played like pretty much a full season.
No, SEC played full. And I think ACC, but I think Big Ten, they didn't play full because I think they played like 6 and then the bowl game or whatever, like 7.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, some injury background there with him. Like I said, he got put in the spin cycle when he's trying to cover the slot against whoever number 11 is. I know probably a future 1st round pick for Ohio State.
Oh man, Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yep, that's him. Yeah, he got him good. I loved one rep on a comeback against Garrett Wilson when it was on the offense's left sideline. It was a comeback, played beautifully by him. He broke up the pass. They tried him again on the right side when he's lining up on that side. Garrett Wilson got him on the comeback that time, and they were able to complete the pass. So, he was competitive. There's a lot of good dudes on that side. So when they did target him, everything looked pretty good except for that one miscommunication between him.
There was another one, and I think it was Ohio State, where he was in his back pedal, he was staying square, and he opened up too soon. The receiver sat his route down, and he kind of like speed turn all the way around just to kind of sit down where I'm just like, dude, like, let him close that space a little bit more. Like, you were good. Just stay square. You were in good position. But again, a lot of how I view it is, what can I teach? What can I teach? Right? Like, what's difficult to teach? And I think in the sense of him, his movement skills, things like that, while he's not going to be, confused for probably the Womack kid in the sense of his lateral agility and movement skills, I think he moves good enough on the outside. Like, he's a good moving outside cornerback. I didn't see like stiffness and things like that. So a lot of what I would say is just trust your speed, trust it. And trusting your speed will help you trust your technique more and let you know, like, you don't have to get out of there. You don't have to be in a rush to do things, whether it's in the line of scrimmage or off coverage.
I mean, 221.
I'd be excited to work with him. I'd be excited to work with him.
Ton to work with. Height, weight, speed guy. Aggressiveness is good. You would rather coach that out of him than have to try to coach aggressiveness into him. We've seen that with other height, weight, speed guys that the 49ers have drafted in recent history. So, overall, being able to draft this guy late 6th round, 221 overall, I think is a bargain of a deal. I mean, I think that's a steal of a player, and we'll see what the 49ers end up getting with him in a pretty crowded cornerback room now. And it's funny because everybody from round 3 to round 6, like, they were all kind of 4th round prospects, 5th round prospects, right? Like, they could have gone in literally any order, and it would have felt pretty much exactly the same. If you just
Daniel Jeremiah
gone from Tariq Castro-Fields, the 6th rounder, and worked backwards to the 3rd rounder in Ty Davis-Price, if they went in that order, the exact opposite order flipped, it would have felt exactly the same as far as value that the 49ers got in this draft, I think.
Daniel Jeremiah had an early 4th round grade on Tariq Castro-Fields. So that kind of just lets you know, like, so I guess he put out a value chart in the sense of the draft picks. So after the 6th round, it was like best value. And it was about 5 guys. Castro-Fields was one of the guys. And then it shows where he had him ranked in his top 150. So he had him as a top 150 player. And obviously, he was a guy that went in the 200s.
Yeah, I'm looking at the beast, Dane Brugler of The Athletic. The beast is a really good one because I like the way they have all of the workout numbers and everything. And yeah, 4th round grade for Brugler as well for Tariq Castro-Fields. And actually, it's funny because I saw a post-draft, I saw a listing of versus consensus, taking all the top expert draft boards versus where players were drafted. And Tariq Castro-Fields was one of the biggest steals on the 49ers draft board. And there was some really big, I think, both offensive linemen, but especially the 3rd and 4th round, Burford, and the 3rd round. And I think maybe Tyrion Davis-Price, the 49ers 3rd round running back, was the biggest reach based on consensus boards for where the 49ers took him. So they got, like, again, it illustrates our point perfectly. Like, everyone just felt like kind of a 4th or 5th round prospect from the 3rd round through the 6th round and maybe even into the 7th round. So interesting stuff there. But we've got Tariq Castro-Fields now to go with Charvarius Ward, Emmanuel Moseley. Now Jason Verrett added to the group. That's already 4. We haven't even started talking about Ambry Thomas yet. Dante Johnson is back. And who I'm forgetting somebody else too.
Womack? Did you say Womack? I mean,
Womack, the other corner.
He was drafted higher than Castro-Fields. Yeah, and he's a guy that it feels like he's going to fit like a legit role as we have his opening at nickel. You're going to be able to compete for it. Whether it's you, Diamador Lenore, will it have to be a guy like Emmanuel Moseley? We don't know, but they will have Denard or Denard. They will have guys there to really be able to compete for the starting nickel spot.
Yeah, Diamador Lenore is the one I was forgetting from last year's draft, the 5th rounder, and Darquez Denard is back as well. And they added a college free agent, Taylor Hawkins. So a ton of corners that are all battling it out. They can't all make the roster. I think you put a little asterisk next to Jason Verrett. Not sure exactly what you're going to get there, but still, you're 2 deep. And with Verrett, you're 3 deep at each outside corner spot. So if you got Moseley and Ward, I would presume they're the starters on the outside. Then you've got Ambry Thomas and Jason Verrett backing up each one of those sides. And then you still have Tariq Castro-Fields. Sam Womack could probably play some outside as well as Diamador Lenore, although I think it probably will be more Diamador Lenore versus Samuel Womack. We'll talk more about Womack as a prospect coming up. We haven't done that podcast yet. Battling in the slot, but Moseley could play some slot as well if Verrett's the guy on the outside. So ton of competition there. Dante Johnson can play slot, can play safety, can play outside. So it's going to be fun. Training camp's going to be fun at corner. A lot of competition. And Tariq Castro-Fields absolutely in that mix and could be a guy that sticks for a while. And that'll be interesting. I wonder if, Ambry Thomas might have a little competition. And clearly the 49ers weren't ready to throw him in there because not only Ward, now they brought back Verrett and they drafted 2 more corners to go with the 2 corners they drafted last year.
I think the 49ers have done a terrific job of just creating competition really throughout their roster. And I mean, there are a lot of people, and I saw you in my chat on YouTube this morning. There are a lot of people that believe that Davis Price, he will compete with Elijah Mitchell. So I was looking at, and if that's the case, then I get it. Like if Kyle Shanahan says, I don't trust Elijah Mitchell, I'm not 100% sold. I'm going to draft this running back in the 3rd round. He's going to push Elijah Mitchell, and we're going to see who the best guy is going to be for this job. And if that's the thought process, then I like that 3rd round pick a lot more because my thing has always been value, and I don't think you just drafting an insurance player in the 3rd round when you're trying to look for guys to be able to play right now. But I see all that to say, competition. I feel like at every level, whether it's on the running back position, I think receiver position, when you start looking at guys like McLeod and Danny Gray, and who's going to kind of be that 4th guy that's dressed up. You look at the offensive line and the competition that's going to be at the guard positions. You go to the defensive line. There are a lot of bodies there, but now you throw Drake Jackson in the mix. And all right, like who's going to be the guy that gets the most snaps? There's going to be a good rotation, but there's going to be an odd man out for sure. And then that cornerback, I mean, definitely the nickel spot. Outside, we'll see how Verrett comes in. Then Emmanuel Mosley. I mean, they are setting themselves up to have a terrific roster just based off the competition and how everyone's going to have to raise the level of play.
Absolutely, yeah. Talking about the 3rd round running back, you better draft him thinking he's going to compete for a starting job if you're going to draft a running back that high.
And I think
which tells you a little something, I think. But the 49ers look at that position differently than I do, obviously.
Yeah. The cliche thing will be, there's always competition at every position. But, I mean, we know, okay, there are guys that you go into the season thinking, hey, this is my starter. And do they view Elijah Mitchell that way?
Like, what if Verrett comes back and looks like the old Verrett? And what if Emmanuel Mosley, it looks better than Ward? Are you going to sit Charvarius Ward? No, he's going to start because you spent money on him, right? So, like, there's some things that there's competition and then there's not competition. But, yeah, is there competition
at the running back position, though? What do you think?
Oh, there better be.
No, but don't go off of what, like, there better be. I'm telling you, based on what you saw from Elijah Mitchell last year, do you believe that they feel he's the guy, or do you think that drafting Davis Price says we might be looking to push Elijah Mitchell a little bit?
I think the Davis Price is less about Elijah Mitchell, more about injuries, more about not giving the ball to Debo as much, more about Sermon.
Then I hate it.
That's why I hate it. Yeah, I mean, but like that's why I think it should be more. You should be thinking, oh, Elijah Mitchell wasn't really actually that great, and we want to be better than him, and that we're going to spend another 3rd round pick to try to find another guy that kind of fits the same mold as the guy we drafted last year that didn't quite work out that well for us in the 3rd round. And Sermon's numbers weren't that bad either. So I don't really know exactly what they're doing, because if it's just depth, they didn't need to draft a 3rd round player. And especially, who's a 5th round guy on the consensus board. But, as we know, these things are very different. But to me, it always comes down to, and we're out of time here. And by the way, let's save this. We should have this conversation when we break down the scouting report of Tyrion Davis Price, the running back there. But it's going to be fun. The competition at corner is going to be great. A ton of players. And I really look at this as, I think the 49ers are prepared to not re-sign Emmanuel Mosley next offseason. That might be as much as what the Tariq Castro-Fields thing is about, more than anything, because then you got Ward, and then you've got Ambry Thomas versus Tariq Castro-Fields maybe on the outside with Womack in there in 2023. So
I think you set yourself up for, we'll see, but I don't think that says I'm all in on drafting this guy to replace Emmanuel Mosley. I think it's okay, we don't have to invest a whole lot in it. And that makes more sense, right? We talk about the running back position and creating depth or whatever they're trying to do. Insurance. 6th round corner, to me, that's more insurance right there. I think you have good value there in the sense of we have these guys that are starters, but hey, if this guy comes in and he balls, then we can let a guy. We don't have to re-sign Emmanuel Mosley. That value is good. A fourth or fifth round corner with Womack, right? As a slot guy. To me, if you're drafting somebody to specifically come in and compete for a slot starting job and you draft him in the fifth round or whatever, to me, that's good value, right? Like that's good value in the sense of how you're utilizing your draft picks. Drafting a third round running back to be an insurance guy, to me, that's not good value. So that was my argument with it. But I know a lot of people are like, I'm tripping.
Fifth round cornerback Samuel Womack. Is he a slot only guy? We'll get into the film there and we'll do a podcast about him and his scouting report, as well as Tyrion Davis-Price, the third round running back. Is he a potential true number one in the Kyle Shanahan running game? But tomorrow we will talk about the second round pick, number 61 overall, edge rusher Drake Jackson out of USC. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen. Back tomorrow right here, Locked On 49ers.